Good morning, everybody. This is Seychelle Van Poole with Keller Williams, coming to you live from our North Texas, New Mexico, and Memphis region. And we are so excited to have two very special guests on the line with us here today. We have Mr. Fred Weaver. Fred, are you there?
I'm here. Yes. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Fred runs a great business out of the Phoenix area called the Group 4610 Real Estate Network. And then they also have several locations all over the country with his business partner, Kevin Kaufman, along with a market center that we'll dive into today. And then we also have Mr. Cody Gibson with us, who is a MAPS coach, a bold coach, owner of the Portland Real Estate Group, and also the United Home Group that has expansions all over the country as well. And I'm so excited to have you guys. Cody, are you there?
I am. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, we are thrilled to have both of you guys here. So I would love to kick us off this morning with diving into each of your backgrounds, how you guys got into real estate, and sort of what your business looks like right now so everybody can kind of get a picture of where you are right now. And then we'll stair step it back to how you guys got to where you are. So talk to me about where your businesses are right now. Fred, go ahead.
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Hey guys, this is Fred Weaver. I'm one of the co-owners of Group 4610 Real Estate Network. We are based here in the Phoenix, Arizona area. We have expanded our presence in the last 3 years or so to about 15 different markets across 7 different states. We today, actually just this week, just crossed over the 100 agent mark. So we've got over 100 sales associates in our company across those 15 locations. We're on track to close maybe 130, $140 million worth of sales this year.
Wow.
Roughly, we'll call it roughly 600 units. It might be a little bit shy of that. So that's what we look like today, which is I know what you wanted to know, and obviously it's been a fun, messy, failure way forward type of ride, which I'm more excited to talk about versus just talk about what we look like today.
Exactly. Well, and I think giving perspective of where you are right now and knowing you're in a journey kind of helps us backtrack it to know some of the things you've learned along the way. Cody, give us a quick overview of where you guys are in your business right now, and then we're going to stair step it back to talk about where you guys have come from.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. I'm Cody Gibson with the United Home Group, which is the brand that we use for expansion. We initially launched a mega agent team in Portland, Oregon, under the flag of Portland Real Estate Group back in 2010. We began expanding outside of Portland in 2011. And since then, we've expanded into 73 different markets, and we're in 16 or 17 different states. We're just over 125 associates. We're going to end the year with close to 1,000 new escrows and somewhere in the neighborhood of 260, 275 million in volume.
Wow.
And of course, we've had the messy, problematic challenge. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we did it that way. How silly were we? Like Fred, and Fred and I are close. We'll sometimes talk about something that we're doing today, and I'll think, gosh, I wonder if we're going to look back in 6 months and wonder how silly we were.
Well, one thing I appreciate about you guys is that you've always been transparent and vulnerable in the things you've done right, but also, more importantly, the things that you wish you would have done differently. And to lead that charge, I'm going to give you a quick little plug for a real estate Facebook group you guys started that if you're on this webinar right now, you need to go join right now, which is called Real Estate Agents Who Want Real Results. So I want to see all of you guys go and make sure you join that right after this. It's an incredibly high-minded group of agents in there with a lot of really productive conversation that does exactly what you all do so well, and that's continue to elevate the conversation, add value, and move the ball forward. So let's circle back here. And I'm going to go to you, Fred, first, and Cody, I'll hit you second. Fred, talk to me about how you and Kevin got into real estate. Talk to me about, kind of walk me back as like a little bit of your backstory and talk to us about how you guys got in and where you are.
Yeah, you bet. So I actually graduated from college in 2003. At the time, I was working for Washington Mutual Bank. So I have a little bit of a background in working in a wholesale banking environment. I oversaw or ran the rate lock desk, which is that fun place that does all the math when people are locking in their interest rate, doing a refi or a purchase. So that was kind of my first exposure to real estate. My dad's always been in banking and got a job where he was working while I was in school and continued it for a year or so out of school.
Cool.
I was a really mean person. I probably still am today. You guys can laugh at me. You probably already, I'm not the friendly, huggable Kevin Kaufman, my business partner. But I was a pretty bad spot in my life at that point. I hated life. I hated everybody around me, and I was looking for a change. And I met a gentleman at Washington Mutual who taught my products and pricing class, and he had been enjoying some Carlton Sheets real estate investing stuff, the no money down late night commercial stuff you used to see 20 years ago. And that was my first exposure to real estate, was Carlton Sheets, lease options, lease purchases, subject tos, you name it.
Yeah.
And so I quit my job in 2004 with this gentleman, Mark. I said, hey, man, let's go ahead and start investing in real estate. Why are we working here if you know how to make all this money in real estate? I quickly figured out it's a really good idea to have a good source of income, steady income that comes in if you want to be a real estate investor. So I went out and got a real estate license. I figured I might as well sell some houses while I'm trying to invest.
Totally.
And 2004, 2005 rolled around, and if you had a pulse, you could sell real estate in Phoenix, Arizona. So I did pretty well. Fast forward the story. My business partner, Kevin, and I actually know each other because I went to school with his wife all the way back in second grade. So we've known each other. I've known his wife, Trisha, since second grade all the way through college. We continue to work with each other for now 10 years. And we jokingly, but it's half truth, say that the reason we keep working with each other is I like his wife more than him, and he likes my wife more than me. So for some reason, we stay together and keep plugging ahead. Kevin got into real estate in 2007 in the worst real estate market ever. I think he was maybe the only person in real estate school in Arizona that year. He got a license. Yeah, right. Like nobody wanted a license in 2007. And he actually introduced me to Keller Williams. He recruited me over to Keller Williams unknowingly. And so about fast forward 6 months later, him and I were talking, and we decided, you know what, I think it'd be a really good idea if maybe we shared an office with each other. We were both working from our separate homes at the time and negotiating short sales. And we didn't know what we were doing. We were trying to survive in real estate. So I don't know if anybody's ever been there. I've had a couple of those survival moments in my real estate career. It's the moments where you wonder if you should quit the business, go out and find another job, go do something different, because real estate can beat you up from time to time. So anyway, fast forward the story.
Hang on real quick. I'm stopping here for a second.
Yeah,
so I met you guys right around the time that Kevin got into the business. It was like right around 2007, 2008 was when I met you guys. And like you're glossing over this part where you guys got into the worst part of like real estate in the worst part of the country, right? Like you both are 2004 and 2007. The market turned basically at the end of 2004 into 2005 in Phoenix, right? The market completely shifted. And your market was one of the worst markets hit. So you guys went from a steady banking job to this absolutely insane, unpredictable, completely chaotic real estate market. Talk to me about, like, with your banking background and what you guys are seeing around you, what did you do to create a cutting edge at that point?
Well, I'd love to say we had some grand plan, and kind of like Cody said, you
Right.
look back on it and you're like, man, that was really smart that we did that. And then
Right.
you look back on stuff and you go, that was really dumb. Why did we do that? I think you just make the best decisions in the moment that you
Right.
can, given the information you can. If there's one thing I would say about Kevin and I is that we make quick decisions, but when we make mistakes, we tend to go clean them up and never make them again.
Mm-hmm.
And so 2008, our mindset was strictly survival. We were both just, I had tons of credit card debt. I owned a lot of investment properties. I use that term loosely.
Mm-hmm.
I speculated on real estate. It went down in value. I didn't know it could do that. I was dumb at that time. And, so we were both hurting financially, and we both had also been married in 2007, obviously to different people. I say that, because we get jokes because we're two guys that are business partners. But, we were just trying to survive, Seychelle. We we literally we just fought our way through it. There was times where he'd pay his credit card payment, and then he'd have a little bit of a balance, a little bit of room left. He had, the limit came down, and he'd write a check to me so I could pay my bills, and then I'd pay my credit card bill, and I'd write a check back to him. And I mean, we
Wow.
literally were just scraping by, trying to survive. And the one good thing we had figured out is that most people didn't want to do short sales, and
Right.
we saw that as an advantage. We decided that we didn't want to work for banks because we weren't really good bank employees. We had that background and both done very poorly at being employees. So we liked the idea of negotiating short sales, but the problem with short sales was they took so long
Right.
to close, if you could even get them closed. So it was a very long-term pipeline building type of game.
And so you cut your teeth on short sales when really nobody else in the country was figuring it out. And not only did you do that, you guys created an entire system around that. And then you started doing video blogs and blogging about it. And you started
Yeah,
educating.
Yeah, we did. Again, that's one of those, like, I think decisions that you look back on it and you go, was that right or was that wrong? We started educating in Phoenix in 2008. The second month Kevin and I worked together, Kevin came back from a short sale class and he said, that was terrible content. We should teach our own class. And I said, okay. And like two people showed up to our first class, and one was our employee of ours and one was some random dude off the street. But we just, we didn't quit. We kept teaching, and eventually 20 people showed up, and 50, and then 100 showed up. And then we went to video blogs. And so the good part of all that teaching was we got a lot of real estate referrals from around the country. And we also got a lot of people that saw our videos online through organic, Google searching and that sort of thing that brought us their business. So that was the good part. The bad part was we also trained our competition, so you can kind of look at it two ways. But looking back on it, we were just trying to survive, and we did what we knew in the moment and
Right.
created a stir, and it worked out okay. Our average sales price was $110,000 in 2008, 2009. So
Wow.
we weren't really, making a lot per transaction, but we were surviving.
Right. So fast forward. So you guys figured out how to cut your teeth and build a business in the downturn, right? And then the market shifts and you guys start looking at growing and expanding. So walk me through as you're coming out of this insane down market, short sales, figuring it all out and creating great systems and training modules around that. Where do you go next?
So late 2011, our coach at the time popped the question, what could you guys do to raise your purchase price, your average sales price? Because it was so
Great
low, it was in the
question.
low 100s.
Yeah.
And that's where we came up with the idea that maybe we should go sell real estate in another city. We happened to be in San Diego at that time, and we said, sounds like a good idea if we sold real estate in San Diego. They've got higher price points here than Phoenix. We ended up shelving that idea. That was late 2011. We actually sent Gary Keller an email in late 2011 asking some questions about what he thought that could look like. We ended up shelving that idea, and in 2012, Kevin and I took on a regional leadership role with Keller Williams, and we'll just kindly say that wasn't a good fit for us, for those of you that know us. But in 2012, we had up to that point, we had our best year. We closed
Right.
219 transactions. We had a buyer's team with showing agents of 4 or 5 people. We had a lead listing agent with an assistant. We had several admins. So we were doing really good. But Kevin and I came back from that job that we took with Keller Williams, and we reinserted ourselves into the business. And what we found out was the market was shifting and had shifted. We were poor leaders. We left our people. We moved to Colorado for a short period of time, and we left our people in Arizona, department heads, running certain parts of the business, but nobody was keeping the entire company together. Nobody was, keeping the whole boat afloat, if you will. And so we had a really hard learning lesson in late 2012. Our entire sales team walked out the door on us over 30 days. In December of 2012, we looked up. We had about $40,000 worth of monthly overhead due to some heavy marketing we were doing on radio and things like that.
Right.
And Kevin and I were the only 2 salespeople in the business, and that's where that shift that you asked about started. And Kevin looked at me and he said, I guess I'll be the lead listing agent. I should have spoke first. And I said, I guess that makes me the lead buyer's agent. And we went back at it and learned how to sell traditional real estate. And we had to have another survival year. 2013 was another year like 2008 of just trying to claw and survive and not fail our way out of the business.
So you thought you'd had it all figured out, and yet from 2008 to 2013, which is 5 years later, right, you're back at it again.
Oh yeah, I mean the market shifts. You think you're smart, right? And
Right.
then life, slaps you in the face, and you realize, gosh, I don't know anything. And so
Yeah.
these are great humbling moments that make us who we are. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Well, maybe I would, not write the lows as low, but let's
Right.
face it, they've also made us who we are and given us the perspective we have today.
Right. But you didn't just say, "Oh, well, that's it. My team imploded. I'm done." You guys took that as a challenge. So
Yeah.
where,
I mean,
2013 happens. Where do you go from there? And then I'm going to switch over to Cody here in just a second. So 2013 happens. You go, well, that, I'm going to say it nicely, stinks. Um, we've got to go and rebuild. You're now the lead buyer's agent. Kevin's the lead listing agent. You go to rebuild, and what does that look like? You'd looked at the expansion
well, it
model.
looks.
You'd looked at, leaving your team completely and coming back in. Where do you go from there?
Honestly, it looks like pure hell. I'm just being
Yeah.
straight. I mean,
No,
we there
honestly, yeah.
there was days. The goal was hopefully both Kevin and I wouldn't show up at the office and both want to quit that day. Like it was like, okay, one of us can want to quit, but as long as the other one doesn't want to quit, we'll keep showing up every day, right? So
Mhm.
the bad days were when both of us showed up and we're like, gosh, I don't know if I can make this and do this anymore. But it's also why I have a business partner, and I think it's been part of our success and part of our stress management, and part of our ability to take risks is because there's two people making the decisions, and we get to bounce a lot of ideas off each other. So back to your question, 2013, we just rebuilt. I eventually hired a showing agent who became a buyer's agent, who eventually became the lead buyer's agent. Kevin went and failed and sucked his way forward at doing traditional listing appointments. Like we
Mhm.
were really good at helping people figure out what to do when they were upside down on their mortgage.
Right.
We had to figure out what to do with people that had equity and what they wanted to hear us say and what was attractive to them. So yeah,
Mhm.
2013, the ending of that story is we survived it again. And so the first quarter of 2014, we look up and we say, okay, we survived. We're starting to build again. And the question became, do we want to keep this really small and manageable where the net income is pretty good because we're both doing the sales or have our hand in the sales?
Mhm.
Or do we want to take the risk and grow again? And it was a long, drawn out conversation over
Sure.
weeks and months, because when you've had your entire sales team walk out the door on you, the first thing, when you're thinking about growing again is not, oh, let's do this. This will be fun, right? Like once
Right.
you've been kind of beat up, you're a little hesitant to pull the trigger again. So
Sure.
anyway, 14, we eventually said, you know what, if our mission, which we had created years before, was truly to produce extraordinary results, influence people, and impact lives, then we couldn't play small. And so we were either going to have to change our mission, or we were going to have to move beyond the limits and the pain and decide that we were going to work our way forward and try to grow again, succeeding through other people versus doing it on our own. And so that's when we took the lid off the business, was in the second quarter of 2014. And at that time, we went and we visited several of our friends that ran these big businesses like Cody that closed 400, 500, 600 deals a year.
Mhm.
And we just asked ourselves, what are these guys doing differently than we're doing? And I'm happy to answer questions about that, but I want to wrap up my story so you can get to Cody. But
Yeah.
that's when we really started growing, and that's when we dipped our foot into expansion, was fourth quarter of 14. And that's when Kevin and I drew a line in the sand and said, we're not going to go sell any more houses. We're going to succeed with and through other people.
That's awesome. And we're going to touch on that in just a minute because I know that that's something that you guys have through this process become incredibly passionate about. So we're going to talk about that some. I'm going to switch gears over here for just a second over to Cody. So Cody, I would love to hear some of your backstory.
Yes, ma'am.
You start United Home Group right in 2011. You started Portland Real Estate Group in 2010. Talk to us about what made you get into the business. Where'd you come from a little bit?
In the very beginning, I had a couple of friends who were in real estate that I knew, and one of them called me on Seychelle, like a Wednesday, and said, "Hey, do you want to go play golf today?" And at the time, I was selling diesel engines for
Yeah.
Cummins, and I went, "Golf? It's Wednesday, Holmes. I got a job." And he goes, "Oh yeah, you got a job. You suck. Well, I'll be playing golf." And I hung up the phone, and I thought, what does this guy even do? I knew he was in real estate, though at the time, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know. And so I started asking him questions, and I remember I was in his car one day, and he said, "Hey, come here." And, he drove to his real estate office and took me inside, walked me into his office. It was this beautiful office, and he said, "Look at this." And he showed me a check, and it was a commission check written out to him for $12,000. And he showed it to me, and I went, "Oh my gosh!" You know, I'd never gotten a check for 12 grand.
Yeah.
Now, what he didn't tell me was it was the first check he'd had in 7 months. That part he left out, and I didn't know enough to ask.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm being paid every 2 weeks. This joker's got a check for 12 bigs, and I'm thinking he's making 24 a month.
Yeah.
And so he, you know, very kindly let me think that, I guess. And so I'm thinking to myself, you know what? If this clown can make that kind of money, I'm in. And so I quit my job. And, you know, I'm not making a lot. I mean, I don't know. I was probably making 65 grand.
Yeah.
And I quit my job, and it took me a couple of months to go through, you know, real estate school and blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't great with my money. And so long story short, I find myself with an activated real estate license, which I at one point thought was a printing press for money, and realized later it wasn't. And I have, you know, $3,500, you know, and no income. And so I have this real estate license, and I go in, and, you know, long story short, the manager forgets who I am, sits me down at a desk and says, "Have a great day." And, you know, later that morning, I go and I find him, and I say, you know, "Hey, when do the customers come?" I'd never bought a home, and I'd never worked with a real estate agent. And so I was relating it to a car, right? Like a car lot. He goes, "Oh, they don't come. You gotta call them." You gotta call them. That's why there's a phone book at your desk. And I went, "Oh, cool." And so I'm walking back to my desk, and I go, "Shoot." And I go back and I go, "What do I say?" And he, you know, now he's getting like irritated with me. He goes, "You ought to try saying hello. Ask if they want to tell their." Okay, cool. I'll go do that. You know, so for the next 5 hours, I'm calling the white pages, and you know, I don't know what the worst 5 hours of my life truly have been. So that would rank real close to the top. And at the end of the day, you know, he asked me how the day went, and I said it was great. And I didn't know what else to say. And you know, I was leaving at 5:05 because I thought it was a job. And you know, later in life, I realized some of the things I've learned that are true don't really help me. And one of those things was, you know, I showed up at 8, he came in at 9. I left at 5:05. He'd been there, you know, with a 3-hour lunch break. And I thought it was a job. So on the way out to the car, he goes, "Listen, I need you to sell a house a week and you'll be okay here." And I went, "Okay." And so, you know, 16 weeks later, I'd sold 16 homes. And on week 17, I go into his office on Thursday, and I said, "Listen, I know I haven't sold a home yet this year. You know, but I have offers out, and I got tours all day Saturday." Anyway, he looks at me and he goes, "Cody," and I said, "Can I have an extension till Monday?" And he goes, "Listen, nobody sells a house a week forever. You've been doing great." And it took me 4 months to sell the next house. Of course, the only difference when you hear that story is what was going on between my ears, right?
Right.
And so I tell that story to tell this story. I went on to sell about 50, 60 homes that first year. For the next 5 years, I bounced around between, you know, 45 sales a year to my height was maybe 85, 87. You know, it wasn't quite 90. And at the time, that was in Anchorage, Alaska. I'd have an administrative assistant who operated as kind of a showing assistant as well at times. And heck, let's call it what it is. She would go out and list homes too for me.
Right.
Or she'd work with buyers if I was out, you know, hunting for the week or fishing or playing golf. Or did lots of that. And in 2006, I had which was about 6 years in for me, I had the opportunity to open a Keller Williams franchise with some friends and become the team leader. And so I quit selling homes and threw my database in the trash, which was a ridiculous decision. And I became a team leader, which was a great decision. And for the next 5 years, I, you know, recruit and train and lead and develop and build this real estate office. And I find myself in 2010 now living in the Portland, Oregon area. And I thought, you know, I've loved being a team leader. I've been able to be, you know, a MAPS coach, a bold coach, which I still am. And that's, you know, transformed my world, both, you know, being coached and getting to coach. So I found myself going, you know what, I think I want to go back into sales. And I had heard Gary talking about expansion back in 2009, 2010. And he had graciously let me hang out in some of the top 100 rooms as I just couldn't talk. And so I've been hearing him talk about this, and I think I really want to go do that. You know what? This is cool. This is different. And I remember, you know, opening Portland Real Estate Group, and I called at the time MAPS coach Tony DeCello, and I said, "Hey, would you coach me?" And he said, "No." And so a few weeks later, I called and said, "Would you coach me?" He said, "No." So I called his wife, and she said, I'll ask him. And he told her no. And I went back and I said, listen, I don't live in Portland yet. I lived in Vancouver, Washington, a half hour away. I don't live in Portland, Oregon. I'm going to open a real estate sales team here. I'm going to sell 100 plus homes my first year without meeting a client. Will you coach me? And he goes, well, that's interesting. Yeah, I'll do that. And so that first year, which, would have been 2011, we sold 104 homes. And I didn't show any homes, didn't go on any listing appointments. At that time, we had dramatically built real estate on a pedestal, otherwise known as Craigslist.
Right.
And so we were posting homes left and right on Craigslist, and we had 30 different accounts of IP addresses across the world, and virtual assistants, and keyboards flying, and I mean, it was ridiculous. And we were driving 1,400 registrations a month. And if you've got 1,400 registrations a month, you're going to sell some homes, even if you're terrible.
You can figure it out.
And that same year, and that same year in 2011 was our first expansion. And we expanded into a city in Washington, which was ridiculous. And the reason that we went there, which is just so silly when I look back, was that at the time, for the internet lead gen providing tool that we were using, it was the only major city in the Northwest that they would give us one. And so we expanded there.
And you're going
like
across
what a ridiculous
for your first expansion.
Yeah. And somewhere. And so that lasted about 11 months, and we had to close that.
Oh, I think we lost Cody there for a second. He'll jump back in. So he basically said he lost that, and then they had to restart it. So he'll jump back in and come join us in just a second and hop back on. I think he's probably dialing in here in just a second. But yeah, so with that, Fred, you guys jumped into the expansion, and I know one thing that you guys have worked a really long time on is your onboarding.
Yes, absolutely.
I think
Cody jump back on. I can answer it unless you want.
Cody, are you there? Let's see here. Cody, we'll get him when he hops back in. We'll grab him. Yeah, Fred, go ahead, and then when Cody gets on, we'll jump him back on.
Yeah, you bet. So the question was on onboarding. So I mean, today, Seychelle, like last month, I believe we onboarded somewhere in the ballpark of 17 or 18 new real estate agents into our company. And so as you can imagine, like we didn't get there overnight, right? That's a lot of different people doing the hiring, and that's the growth of the company. But onboarding agents and integrating people into your systems, into your culture, into your training is one of the more challenging parts, I would say, of doing, of running the businesses that Cody and, Kevin and myself kind of have going on right now. You take for granted how easy it is if somebody walks in your door and you meet them in your hometown, whether it's Dallas, Texas, or Phoenix, Arizona, and you do the interview process and they get to meet you, and you help assist them in the training and how to kind of do everything, and they get to watch over the shoulder of somebody. But as you start growing and expanding, you recognize that, man, this is a challenge trying to keep everybody on the same page and keep everybody integrated and keep everybody plugging along, doing the same thing, just because you have that distance that has been created.
Got it. That makes perfect sense. And that's really hard to do at a distance. Cody, Cody, are you on? I think I heard him just come back on. When we get him, he'll hop on. Okay, keep going, Fred.
No problem.
I'm back on.
Oh, there he is.
Hey.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I just went dead. So sorry. I just dialed right back in.
Perfect. We've got you.
I felt like your relief pitcher there. I just didn't get enough warm-ups in the bullpen before I was asking.
He was ready. He was ready for you.
So Fred always
2011, you have, Fred, I'll come back to you in just a second. So Cody, 2011, we have your expansion, basically your first expansion fall apart. Where do you go from there?
Yep. So in 2012, we opened another one. And in 2013, we opened two, and only one of those from that, 24-month period is still open today. And the other two or three that we opened back then, have since been shut down, relaunched, or one of them actually hasn't even been relaunched. And back then I was really clear that, you crawl before you walk, and you walk before you run, and you run before you sprint. And so we were fine with that. It was okay to make, to make mistakes. It was okay to do it wrong. I mean, it was okay to just see what happens and give it a shot. And, you know, back in those days, I wasn't taking any money out of the business. And so I was able to pour the money right back into the business. So every time I had any money, I would, you know, invest in or buy another person or employee, or I'd invest in or buy another tool or system that could push the business further.
And what was
And
helping, you both have talked about, you know, the key of having good people. What tools were you using to A, help figure out how to find good people, and then B, how to keep them?
you know, back then, I was always a student of and a teacher of Recruit Select, which of course has transitioned into career visioning. And, you know, and I don't know that either of those systems is perfect, though it's perfectly better than the system I would use without them.
Got it.
And it, you know, at least it's a model to walk through and a system to use. And I know that Kevin and Fred have been, you know, really good role models of hiring great talent. And I think if I were to say it in one or two sentences, for me, it would be to be the kind of person that people want to be in business with. And you could have every system under the sun, and if you're unwilling to be the kind of person someone wants to be in business with, it won't matter, you know, if you're following steps 1 through 12 because they don't want to work with you. And keeping them is simply about providing opportunity and building a vision so large for your own world that they can live theirs within it. And that's scary.
That's a huge statement. Build a vision so large that other people can build theirs within it. That's awesome, Cody.
Or
And
they
it
end
is
up leaving
scary.
you all the time because they feel like they hit a glass ceiling with you. And you know, that's what I love about expansion, is that we're building roles and we're building opportunities that didn't exist. I mean, I have today our expansion business has 9 regional directors who follow the same regional lines as Keller Williams has. That way it keeps it easy. And 4 of those regional directors made over 5 figures last month. They made over $10,000 last month. One of them pushed 18 grand. And that was a job that didn't even exist, didn't exist 12 months ago. And so I think about, you know, with expansion, we're building opportunity and building roles that weren't even in our real estate space before now. We don't even know what roles we're going to build into it. I mean, Kevin and Fred the other day were talking about hiring a productivity coach just within their expansion business. That's a role that didn't exist outside of a real estate office until today.
Well, and I think that's something that, you know, Gary Keller is trying to teach us, which is we've already built a national platform and model for how to succeed in real estate and become the #1 real estate company in the country. As real estate agents, why don't you just follow a similar model for your business and use that as a platform to expand?
Well, and it becomes like a distribution network or distribution channel. I mean, like, so for us to be in 74 or 75 different markets, there's only one way that we can track the income from that. You know, we work with the market centers and the MCAs, and we can actually look at where the check is. We can look at where the money is. Did we get paid? What's the green sheet? How do we get paid? You know, without that network, I don't have the bandwidth or the money or the skill right now to go build a system that tracks my money across 16 states and pays me. I don't have that.
Do you think, Cody, do you think that your experience for the 5 years as being a team leader opened your mind to how that could work on a scalability model?
You know, 101%. What it did as a team leader for 5 years was it gave me the opportunity. I mean, I've always said that being a TL was kind of my, you know, my college. I didn't go to college. I dropped out of high school. I didn't go to college. I don't have a large formal education. And being a team leader forced me to have a P&L, forced me to do a budget, forced me to have a system and a plan. Because before that, I just sold homes and talked to people and you know, move left real fast, move right real fast, which isn't a horrible model if you just want to make a little bit of money.
Right.
Though if you want to impact lives or create change or do something cool, you have to go deeper. And so being a team leader was like getting a bachelor's degree for me. I mean, in business, and I didn't have it otherwise. I couldn't be who I am today had it not been for that role. And candidly, you know, being a speaker or a coach with Maps and Keller Williams, I couldn't be who I am today without that opportunity. They both forced me to grow.
That's awesome. And thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. So if you were to look back at where you guys are now and where you've come from, what would you say were some of the biggest mistakes or biggest failures that you felt in that process besides dialing through the phone book for 5 hours on your first day in real estate? I'm amazed you didn't quit and walk out the door day one. A lot of people would have. So
Me
that
too.
says a lot about your
I didn't have
grit.
any money. I didn't have any
So,
money.
like,
It's a ridiculous.
what'd you fail through? What'd you grow through?
Do you remember back in the early days of real estate companies, or at least for our careers probably,
Right.
did you ever have like a giant whiteboard on the wall somewhere that all the agents would write their new sales or new listings?
Yes.
I would go in to the workroom at that office. I've only been at two companies, the company I was at before KW and now KW. And I'd walk into that office and I'd walk into that training, the workroom in that other company, and there was this giant whiteboard with all these names and listings, and I would stand there and think, damn it, these people aren't better than me,
Mm-hmm.
though they're doing business better than me.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody got a listing today that I don't have. Somebody has a new escrow today that I don't have. And they're not smarter, they're not better, they're just being better and being smarter. And so I'd walk in there and look at it and go, yep, there's still business to be had, and back to work. And I'd walk to my desk and think, you know what? There's a sale on this desk. There's a listing on this desk. My job is to find it. And, today I would say there's a listing on my desk or a sale on my desk. My job is to ask the right questions to uncover it. I didn't know it that well then. It was just my job is to dig it out. And so some of the challenges along the way back then were, I didn't have the models and systems of KW, so I was just working a lot, and I was taking calls at home, and I was working with buyers and sellers at 9 o'clock at night, and I was working all day Saturday and working all day Sunday, and I was just working all the time, and I thought that's how it looked.
Right.
To be a real estate agent. And I was quitting when I became a team leader at KW. I had bought a couple of homes and I was flipping them, and I was enjoying doing some of the manual work myself because you could see instant gratification. So I liked that. And I was actually leaving the industry, buying a truck, putting a decal on it, and I was going to be a professional home flipper or remodeler. While I was selling 90 homes a year, I was leaving that because I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't happy. I thought I was like, if I spend my whole life doing this, I was 26 at the time. If I'm going to spend my whole life doing this, I'm out.
Yeah.
This is not fun. I'm just working all the time. I've gained a bunch of weight. I don't even like who I am. And that's when KW found me and said, hey, you should look at this. And I went, all right. And I literally said, okay, thinking, you know what? This is going to give me a good income and a steady one, and I could leave at 6 o'clock at night.
Got it. So you were looking for quality of life at that point. You were trying to get back to who you wanted to be.
Yeah, I don't know that I could go back, and I don't know that I would have said those words.
Right.
Though today I would. I mean, that's a great observation. Today I would say that. Back then I was just looking for, it's like, this hurts. What bandage do I put on it?
Right.
My arm is bleeding. How do I stop the bleeding?
Right.
Well, I'd love to use a bandage. I don't have one. There's a sock. Use a sock.
Mm-hmm. And
you just become very, very entrepreneurial. And so, back then that was the mistake. When I come back into sales in 2010, 2011, the mistakes I made were I got in business with somebody who, wasn't a partner in the business, though was an employee in the business. And I treated that person like a partner.
Got it.
And that was a mistake. And then when we started expanding, we tried expanding the MREA model. We'd go to a different city, hire an agent, and then we'd hire a buyer's agent. And in a couple of those cities, we hired administration and put admin there. And then we realized, we have admin in multiple cities, and we got a bill from one of those cities for employer tax. And we went, well, that makes sense. If we're employing someone there, we probably got to pay taxes there.
Right.
I mean, just ridiculous thoughts.
Right.
And so naive. It was 2014 maybe, or 2013 that I said by 2020, my goal is to be in 40 cities. And in 2020, I turned 40 years old. I didn't know a better goal. Like, all right, cool, let's do it this way. At the time, I was in 2 or 3 cities, so 40 seems like a lot.
Right.
Well, halfway through 2017, or actually, no, excuse me, in the first quarter of 2017, we crested 40 cities, and my executive assistant said, you need to change this because we're already there. And I said, I don't want to change it because it's my little reminder that even when I thought I was thinking big, I wasn't. Like when I thought, and I would have told you 40 by 2020, this is huge. I'm almost embarrassed to say it. And I would have told you, I am thinking huge. Well, we overshot that goal and hit it almost 3 years before its time. So obviously I wasn't. And it's my little reminder that when I thought I was thinking huge, I probably wasn't at all.
Yeah. That's a humbling moment right there. So I'm letting that sink in for everybody for just a second because I think that that's really important for all of us to keep in mind. So, what helped you get there? Like, was it a person, do you think, that made the biggest difference? Was it a system that helped you get there ahead of schedule that fast? Was it just momentum?
You know,
Um,
I
like,
think it's a few things. I mean, you're in Gary's Top Agent Mastermind, and
right.
you had the same assignment I had of reading the book Grit.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I look back on life during those years, and frankly, life right now, it's not that different. It's just a bigger platform.
Right.
And so I look at it and I go, well, that's grit. And there's times that I look back and I think, you know what? The only thing I did right was not stopping. Right. The only thing I did well was not quitting. Right. And the only thing, sometimes my best talent is I think I could. Mm-hmm. And so, grit, I think, is what took me through that. I mean, along the way, that seems like such a garbage answer, because along the way, I've had an incredible MAPS coach the whole time. I've had Gary Keller the whole time. I've had KW the whole time. I mean, I've had all this help, so you still have to go and use it.
Well, I think that's what Gary always says to us, though, is he said the difference between those of you who are going to succeed, those that you will succeed well, and those that you will succeed on massive levels, is just the quickness of how fast you fail and how fast you get back up to do either change it or do something about it, right? And so what I'm hearing from both you and Fred is a theme running through having you both on this call at the same time is it's not like this has been a pretty easy rainbow picture here. I'm seeing 4 or 5, 6 in like 4 or 5, 6 times in talking to each of you just in this quick conversation of big, hard, massive, tough failures that you went through, but you didn't roll over and take it. You didn't wallow for 6 months to get back up. You said, well, that stunk. Let's figure out how we're going to change that. Well, that wasn't fun, but it doesn't mean it didn't work. Let's just figure out how we're going to move it forward, right? It didn't change your belief that it was possible. It just made you rethink on how you were going to approach the situation. And I think that that's exactly how grit shows up, right?
It shows up the same way over and over and over again. And Kevin and Fred are good examples of that. And I watched them, and when they make, Fred made an interesting comment. He said, when we make mistakes, we tend to fix it and not make it again.
I wrote that down too.
I'm convinced, and I'm convinced that what we do, especially as real estate agents or entrepreneurs, is that we're trying to use intensity to solve a consistency problem. And so we fall off the wagon, if you will, with lead gen, or we let something drop for a few months or whatever. And so then we come back with this fervor. We run home from family reunion or mega camp or some class or whatever, or maybe even listening to a call like this, and we go, cool, I'm going to do this. And or we come home from Bold and we have this intensity, when really we don't need intensity. What we need is consistency. And it's doing the same things over and over and over, day in and day out, and getting better at them. Mm-hmm. Consistency is the only magic pill I can find.
I like that. I think that that's awesome. So if you were to have advice for somebody who's on the call right now that's at 8 million or 20 million or 40 million, and they're looking to take their business to the next level, obviously you would do a needs analysis, but like if you were to look at that and say, let's help you get to the next level, what are the first 2 or 3 things that you would encourage them to go do?
I would say and I want to hear Fred's answer to this too. I would say number 1, I'm assuming they already have, or they're in the process of hiring a MAPS coach. So let's just assume they have that, or that they're in the process of doing it. So the second piece would be this: stop trusting yourself. And what I mean by that is this: if you're here being 8 million or 10 million, and you want to go there being 15 million or 30 million, you're the least likely person to get yourself there. Right. But we think we know what to do, and we don't. If we thought like a $30 million producer, we'd already be there. The truth is, we think like a $9 million producer is why we're at 9. So we need to quit thinking so damn much, and we need to quit doing our own thing so much, and allow someone else to say, here's what I want you to go do. And that might mean, there's a $12 million producer out there somewhere who's doing a 2-step listing process, and they're awesome at it. And
Right.
for them to double their business without working twice the amount of time, they've got to unwrap that whole thing. And and they're going to go, oh my gosh, I'm terrible at listings. And if they're not careful, the first 3 listing appointments they go on that they don't take the listing, they're going to go, shoot, the heck with this, and go back to a 2-step, which means you're stuck at 9. Yeah. And that means you're stuck at 9 million. And so I think that we have to be real clear that what got us here won't get us there. And we have to be willing to say to someone else, you make the decision on this. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to my coach and said, I don't trust myself because I'm not thinking right yet. What would you do here? What decision should I make? Ultimately, it's my decision, of course.
Right.
But what would you do? Because I don't know what I don't know. And of course, they get to walk in from the outside and they don't know the person. They don't, I'm talking about an expansion partner somewhere or an agent or someone I'm in business with, and I get all wrapped up in them as a person, and I don't want to, let them go or change their role. And someone from the outside can say, well, it's real clear to me you've got this mixed up.
Mm-hmm. One, I think you're surrounding yourself with people like Tony DeCello, right? Like Abe Shreve, like all of these other people that you have in your life. You're surrounding yourself with really, really, really smart people. You don't want to be the smartest person at the table. You want to be surrounded by other people who have lived before you that are looking through a different lens that can help get you to the fastest answer that is going to help you make a change. It doesn't have to be the right answer.
And,
sometimes you're going to change it after you make that decision.
Someone said to me once, they said, Cody, this whole thing is not about making the right decisions. It is going to be about making the decisions that you make right. If I'm sitting around waiting to make right decisions, I'm probably hosed already. My job, though, is to take the decisions I do make and then turn them into being the right thing at the time. And I think about how a friend of mine who owns a giant mortgage company said, Cody, I can do anything. I can't do everything. And one of the mistakes that I see over and over, and say you see it all the time too, someone doing 15 million says, I'm going to do this to do 50. And you go, well, you're probably going to go backwards from 15 doing those 7 things.
Right.
How about we take 1 or 2 or 3 things and treat it like stools, legs on a stool, and let's just do those. I mean, we'll sell close to 1,000 homes this year, and we truly have 3 or 4 main streams of business.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's 100 streams of business, though if we try to fish in 100 streams, we'll catch nothing.
Right. All your poles will break because you can't man them. You might catch a fish, but they're all going to get away. Yeah.
Yeah. We can fish really well in a couple streams.
Right.
And over time as we grow, we bring on something more, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Though until we've seen some level of mastery with something, we have to have the intelligent choice internally to say nothing else until I get this down. I don't know how to do that yet, so I got to stick with this.
Well, and it's interesting because we just had yesterday our business planning for our team for 2018. And when we boiled down our lead sources, resoundingly, there were 4 sources that were at the very top, and like a distant fifth was at below that. Like it was 4 absolutely up at the top. And there was actually a number 1 that ran away, 3 that were within a percentage point of each other. And then the others were down at like 3, 4, 5% of our business. And I think about it like Gary forced us to look at, I say forced because he nailed this in over like 2 or 3 different mastermind sessions with him and our group, right? He said, you guys are all really good at like 1 thing, maybe 2, but a 2-legged stool is not very secure. And if you're going to survive going into the next market and grow, you've got to have 4 legs on that stool. And if you're not focusing on building it 1 at a time to shore that up, you're always going to have a wobbly leg and your stool's going to fall over. So what can you do to really shore up those 4 legs and just focus on those? Don't worry about the rest. And I think that's what you guys are seeing too. You can grow a business with 74, 75 markets and still have the same style of lead generation that you had for 1. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel on it. Just grow what you're doing well already.
It might be the only way it'll work.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, you might be so distracted trying to add the 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th that you forget to grow outside to those other markets.
Smart point.
So, Fred, I'd be curious what your advice would be to somebody if they're at that 8 million, 20 million, 50 million mark wanting to grow. What would you recommend they do? What would be their next steps?
Well, my recommendation is obviously something that just personally affected me on this journey of growth, and it's embrace the mess. Embrace the mess. in 2000 and let's see, what year was that? 2014. I kind of told you about Kevin and I finally making the decision to succeed with and through other people.
Right.
And one of the things that we did at that time is we went up and spent some time with our good friend and your guys' good friend as well, Ben Kinney.
Yeah.
Let us stay at his house for a couple nights and shadowed his business. And you know, what was really interesting about that trip is that Kevin and I found ourselves on day one sitting down with a lot of his different people and departments. And in between, like going between departments, Kevin and I would whisper to each other, like, why does he do it that way? I'm like, gosh, that's like so inefficient. Like we do it better than we found ourselves literally criticizing Ben. I'm being very vulnerable with you guys right now. And it took about half the day for Kevin and I to look at each other and said, well, we keep saying, why does he do it that way? But he continues to double, triple, quadruple us in production, performance, results. So what is it that he's doing that you know he's doing differently than we are? And it really came down to Ben was willing to have a bigger mess than we were. Mm-hmm. And I'm the guilty party there. I'm the guy that wants the I's to be dotted and T's to be crossed. And I'm the guy that, you know, if we were short on admin, I'd be the one that would go put the admin hat on and take that over while Kevin did sales. And, you know, you just put on these different roles in the company. Right. But I think really what limited our growth for so long and what I see that likely limits some people on this call and other people in our industry is just they want everything to be too perfect. They want, and I'm talking to you because this is something I've done, right? They want everything to be calculated. They want everything to work out right the first time. They want everybody to like them and stay on the team. They don't like turnover. They don't like people that criticize their system. So they try to, you know, fix the system every time somebody has a suggestion, because every suggestion, of course, is good and should be implemented. And so I see this thing that Kevin and I literally came back from that trip with Ben and we said, you know what, we're going to go get big and we're going to go get messy and we're going to be okay with it. And that really to this day has been what has gotten us to this point. But of course, as Cody mentioned, you hit these ceilings, right? And I think we're even stuck in a ceiling right now where we're asking ourselves the question, okay, why are we unable to break through? You know, why last year could we sell 480 some houses or whatever, and this year we're maybe going to do 550 to 600 or whatever number it is that I was kind of sharing with you. Like, that's a good growth, but like we've doubled our business in other years. Like, where's the sticking point now? Like, are we back to, you know, we have this controlled growth and we need to let it get messy again? So that's a lot of the conversations that are going on with us. And I think that as business owners, we have to constantly ask ourselves that question. Like, am I the one that has my thumb so on the business that I'm limiting its growth?
That's a huge thing that I think a lot of people on this call have had issues with. I know I personally struggle with that. Because I mean, getting messy, it adds more headaches. It creates more stress. It also creates a lot more opportunity and revenue and cash flow. But it's not comfortable. It's not easy. It's not fun, but it might be necessary. Right. So we've got like 4 minutes left on our call. And Fred, thank you for sharing that. What haven't I asked you guys that I need to make sure I'm asking you for these people on the call?
I want to make one comment about what Fred just said, because everybody thinks they understand taking 2 steps backwards to take 3 forward until it's time to take the second step backwards. Everybody thinks they get it. It's like, what was it? It was Mike Tyson that said, everyone's got a great plan until they get punched in the mouth.
That's really good.
And and I remind myself all the time. I mean, you know, I'll tell you, oh yeah, 2 steps back, 3 forward. Like, I get it. Until I'm about to take step number 2 backwards, it takes every fiber of my being to take step number 2 backwards. And sometimes it's the only way to go forward.
Yeah.
We all say we get it till it's time.
Yeah.
That's huge, Cody.
That's really big. Yeah.
Again, this idea of like embracing the mess and going, you know, when you talk about embracing the mess, it's not all forward steps, right? It really is that, you know, go backwards to go forwards. And I think the one thing that I would impart, and this is not a popular conversation, a lot of people don't like to talk about, I think Cody would agree with me on this, but I will tell you guys, I'm pretty open about this to people when they ask, and I'm just going to share it with you guys on this call. I will tell you that Kevin and I, for about 2 years in a row, were not the highest paid income earners on our team, meaning that we had people for about 2 years in a row that we allowed created opportunities for that made more money than Kevin and I we were literally going backwards financially for several years as we've started expanding, because we were investing in things. We were willing to delay our income to get a bigger return later. And I think that it takes a very brave person to be able to do that, but I don't think enough people talk about that. When we talk about going backwards, it's also about being willing to go backwards with income. You can't go from being the lead listing agent on your team to hiring that out and think that in 6 or 12 months you're just going to magically make the same amount of money or more. When you take that step out of being the listing agent, very often you're going to go backwards because there's a cost of sale to replace yourself, right? And so, you know, it's not sexy, it's not awesome to talk about, but you know, that's part of growing something bigger, is being willing to go backwards to then get that bigger payoff going forward.
Well, and I think
I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah.
My executive assistant, my KK in my world, will make more money from the business this year than I will. I'm outside of our telemarketers. I don't think we have somebody in the company that's paid less than I am right now.
Yeah.
And we, you know, I think that we worship this net profit, and I'm okay with that. I just want to put the context around how long. I mean, Gary will tell us, and Seychelle, you've heard him say it.
Absolutely.
He lost money for 8 years. Somebody would have come by during those 8 years and said, "You're a moron for losing money." And he would say, "Cool, have a nice life."
Yep.
Come back in a couple decades and see how things look.
But that was because he was unrelenting in the vision that he believed in, the direction that he was going. And he knew if he could get the model right and get it structured in the right way with enough people and enough volume, that it would all make sense. And for him, he believes in, if you have enough agents that are out there getting enough business for them, everybody else wins, right? And I think both of you are saying too, if I help enough people get where they want to go, I'm going to get where I want to go. Versus if I'm the only one producing, if I'm the only one in sales, I'm never going to get to where I eventually want to go. Maybe easier in the short term, but in the long run, I'm never going to accomplish my long-term goals. So you've got to take that step back to take that step forwrid. Or 2 steps back, in Cody's sake.
Or 2 back, right? Which is real life, or 12 back, whatever. You know, being willing to eat last has always given me a well-fed table around me.
I love that. I'm taking notes as you're talking. That's awesome, Cody. I think we should end on that note. I think that was awesome. You guys, thank you so much for everything that you provided today. I have a whole page of notes from our call, and I can't thank you enough for sharing your wisdom and your vulnerability and being willing to be open with our region, with where you guys are. You both have built amazing businesses, and you're true mentors of mine and dear friends, and I just appreciate you both, and I know our region does too. So if you have referrals anywhere in the country and you can't figure out where they need to go, I want you to make sure that you're keeping both United Home Group and the Group 4610 network on your brain, and you're checking their website for their locations, because odds are they probably have someone or know somebody that can help you if you ever need it. So please make sure you're rewarding these guys with referrals, and go join their Real Estate Agents Who Want Real Results Facebook group too, to get some awesome value out of it. Gentlemen, thank you both so much. We appreciate you guys, and we'll look forward to hopefully seeing you here at Mega Camp shortly.
Thank you, Seychelle. Thank you, Fred.
Thanks, Seychelle. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Great work, Cody.
Y'all are awesome.